I'm Helen Odell-Miller. I'm a professor of music therapy, and my current role is director of the Cambridge Institute for Music Therapy Research at Anglia Ruskin University, which I've been leading since 2017. I trained as a music therapist in the mid-1970s, and from that was employed full-time in a first full-time post in Cambridge in the Learning Disability Service there, and moved from there to working in right across all the adult and child mental health units of the mental health service in Cambridge, and then became head of arts therapies at a later point, and also founded a master's in music therapy training course, the first master's in music therapy in the UK. I taught on that course and had a dual job. So I worked in the NHS, keeping my clinical skills sharp, and I believed that in order to train music therapy students, especially on a new training course in those days, this was 1994, it was founded, that it was important for the tutors to all be working clinically. And we were mostly all doing research as well. I think the skills that I learnt clinically and research-wise in the NHS have really set the foundation for my current role. So I worked in a large teaching hospital with other researchers across the medical, paramedic and allied health professions and nursing. And that I did a master's, an MPhil, another master's, research-focused master's at City University. So I think along the way, I've gained managerial skills, research skills, and learning and teaching skills on top of all the clinical training. And I think you need all those in order to be in a role like directing a research institute. I came from a very different environment in the NHS into an academic setting. And so I've worked hard at inclusiveness in relation to bringing in clinical and therapeutic approaches to an academic culture as it was then, and maintaining inclusivity across recruitment of staff and students. So we've always had, and sometimes we've had 50% international and 50% home students. We have a very open and equal policy here in the university, or in any setting I've worked in. I've tried to be inclusive. I think within that, it means that people have different roles. I've tried to instill an idea that everyone is managing their own workload with supervision, but the supervision is in the climate of facilitating and advising, but not sort of dictating what should happen, and also instilling or sort of encouraging everyone to feel that their voices are all important. Because also, if you're leading and managing, you can really only do that as well as your team or your students allow you. And that means really it's a dual process. So if you're in a management role, you're learning all the time from the people you're working with, and that's informing your decisions, or should be, and working as collaboratively and as inclusively as possible, I think is key. So in relation to the value of the educator role, I've always felt that in educating people about a health discipline, it's important to have people doing that who have lived experience. So that's lived experience from patients and participants being involved in an educator role, and also as an educator, still being very in touch with the clinical field. For example, in my case, with music therapy and the arts therapies. So although I'm an educator and a researcher, I still spend, now it's a little bit less, but I spend time doing clinical work. I think that it keeps the theory and the educating and training alive for participants and students. The value to me, I think, is interesting. I did a music degree, and then I went to the Guildhall School of Music and Drama to train to be a music therapist in the very early days when it was all just beginning in the UK. And I definitely didn't want to be a teacher. I didn't want to teach music. I wanted to use music for the benefit of others, particularly those who found communication difficult or who had emotional, social, psychological issues, because I think that's where music therapy helps most. And so when we set up this training course as educators, my colleague and I, we decided to embed more clinical placements than had to date been included in music therapy trainings, so that the education is happening through experiential learning and not only from books and theory. Hopefully we will move away from the idea that universities and colleges are ivory tower places, that in fact they're responding to what's needed in the community and in health settings. And that to me should be the driver for any education and training in our allied health profession field. I think that would be my main message.